It's Tuesday, February 6th. I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show. It is a hell of a day to talk ball, and joining me to do just that, live in Las Vegas, his city. It's Nate Tice of the Athletic and Yahoo Sports. Nate, what's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Yeah, I commuted here. I had a nice, simple 18-minute ride, paid for parking. I felt like a real, actual commuter.
You paid for parking?
Paid for parking. Yeah, locals, they changed that. That's a big Vegas kind of thing right now. It's it used to be free parking for locals, not so much anymore. You know, it kind of squeezed everything out. So that's a controversial point as a Las Vegas local right now. That's why you don't spend a lot of time on the Strip. But here I am, Mandalay Bay Convention Center. First time I've been on the Strip in like 3 months.
Amazing.
Super Bowl and you is what brings me out.
Oh, yeah, I'm what brings you out. Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, it's awesome to have you here, man. For the people who are not familiar, because you've been doing great work with Yahoo all season long. You've actually been on, I don't know if I can say this, my other podcast, but we haven't had you on this show yet, the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show. So for the people here watching this one, listening to this one, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing here with Yahoo this year.
With Yahoo, just every week I write the overhang, which it started as kind of a one piece. This is a play. This is a prop I like in the Thursday night game. And it turned into a little bit more long form stuff as stuff came to fruition during the season. Some award stuff in there as well. Some prospect stuff. Mock draft season is well underway here now that we're in February. But yeah, you'll see plenty of long-form stuff. My most recent one was on the Rams offense and what they did this season, and another one was on the Eagles offense and what they didn't do this season. So look for more of that, but plenty of draft stuff to come. And probably Super Bowl props that we'll talk about today, but that's what I'm writing about this week.
The Eagles one, particularly good read. You should read the overhang every week. I do my best to do that. See, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, I read every single one. I mean, come on. But how much are you enjoying the mock drafting now?
It's good. It's funny how it just I always say the eye of Sauron gets there. The regular season ends and all the fans that the Super Bowl, okay, we'll watch that, but who should I watch at the Senior Bowl and stuff? So you do a mock with Drake May at 1 in November, no one says anything. But you do a mock with Drake May in January, everyone thinks you're just being controversial and hot takey from North Carolina. You'll see plenty of them the next couple months. But mock draft season's fun. But it's fun also to see everyone going through the waves and emotions of the draft season already. And we're not even at the combine yet. So we're ripping and roaring.
Barely begun.
Yes, it's going to really start next week. Just get ready. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a great exercise for me, really, as a football nerd. But also just going oh, yeah, they need a tackle. Oh, yeah, they do need a receiver. I didn't realize his contract's like that. So it's a fun exercise.
Yeah, we won't be talking about that stuff today. But I have already
a game this week.
I have already gotten into the draft prep with the receiver stuff, and it's a
great class.
It's a fun group.
Do you have any little babies you like, or any?
I love Rome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's been really fun.
He's my 2 after Harrison. Yeah.
Okay. So Okay. We can't get into this because we will go down this road, and I would love to go down this road.
Let's talk Troy Franklin in a couple of weeks. I'm curious.
Okay.
What you
I haven't
think about
started
him.
on him yet, so that's
I think
a good
you'll
one.
like him. I like him a lot.
I'm excited about that. All right, but like I said, we are not going to talk draft here because there is a game coming up here, the Super Bowl. It's a big one. We got a lot to do on the show today. We're kind of going to riff on our Stat Nerd Thursday preview show that we usually do with Dalton Del Don. Dalton's not here because he's an actual 49ers fan, so he wouldn't be able to, be a professional in this thing. So we had to bring in Nate. And Nate is the man. Love Nate's work. He's going to be great on this show. What we're going to do today was we're going to go through the stats you need to know about both of these teams when they have the ball, just like we do it every week. We might give you some props, like Nate said, at the end of the show. So let's just jump right in here, starting with, I don't want to get into the stats just yet. I kind of want general vibe, general feel of both of these teams for you. Starting with, we'll just go with Kansas City first, man. I want to know the journey that you went on with this team this year, because I think a lot of the discussion about them was, they were disappointing this year. This is one of the narrative is this is the worst Chiefs team to get into the Super Bowl. But I don't know, what is that true, or is that just, hey, is it a different group?
It's a different group. I think the people weren't ready for this defense to take a hold, the Spagnuolo defense. I think the underlying signs were there last year. After their bye week last year, they became kind of a top 12-ish defense, as opposed to usually under Spagnuolo, with Mahomes there, it's been bottom 10 and everything. So it's just a reconfiguring of the team, and it makes sense with the team makeup. They got rid of Tyreek Hill, and they spent all the resources on defense, and that's why the defense improved with a really good defensive coordinator. I think Travis Kelce was 75% this year. At first, throughout the year, I was he's 90%, and then every week I was he's 85%.
Yeah, keeps taking that down.
And then back in the playoffs, now he's 100% again. So look at that. I think some of the receiver woes were expected. Just looking at the play experience from
Right.
rookies and second-year players, and whatever Kadarius Toney is a constant rookie. I think the thing that was glossed over a lot was their lack of run game, and which I'll talk about plenty on the show.
Good.
Yes.
That is like the one thing I wanted to pick your brain about the most.
And really, and I've been trying to really pick out what exactly it was, and really it was just players not playing well. Just the guys that were expected to be good players, like a Trey Smith at right guard, was just playing replacement level as opposed to a good player, and that matters especially when you have a new tackle on either side. So, but the thing was, no matter what, even though it felt the struggles and they had a lot of penalties and drops and everything, all the underlying stats, this is like a top 6 offense,
right?
Top 7 offense, give or take, with a bad run game. And now the run game's kind of coming to fruition. Travis Kelce's playing like 95% Travis Kelce. And the one guy I haven't mentioned so far is Patrick Mahomes, who is still Patrick Mahomes and still, I think, really, to me, he's already the GOAT, which I know is kind of controversial a little bit with Brady, but it's like he's there already to me, and that's how he played this year. It's one of the most impressive performances was this year by Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, if he wins this game, then he's going to be
He's
going to be at least on pace. Everybody will have to agree that he is on pace to be that guy. And we have what is his arm going to fall off or something like that? Like, I don't think so. So, look, I think that's a great way to say it. Obviously, as a fantasy show, we end up talking a lot about the receivers every single week and like the struggles there. But the whole time I'm with you that this felt like a team that was growing in other areas, just not the areas that most of the football universe and especially the fantasy universe is focused on, which is like, all right, like I drafted Sky Moore to be that guy. And I was really hoping Sky Moore was going to take a step this year. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen. And then Rashee Rice, where were you at with Rashee Rice as a prospect? Because to me, I thought, and I actually talked about this with him last night at opening night, was I felt like at SMU, the final year, he was kind of playing as like an X receiver running go routes.
Ball winner?
A ball winner. And not the best ball winner either, by the way, but it's a lot of go routes and a lot of hitch routes and all that stuff. And then you see him right away in this season, and he's
a yak king.
Yeah, he's not doing any of that.
I know.
And he's just running crossing routes. And like, man, you never, and again, this is just a hole in my process, but I charted 8 games, I think 7-8 games of him. And obviously what I found out was he was injured for most of those games. But still, even the role part of it is really different than what we've seen in the NFL.
Totally different. I liked him, but I had a late second, early third round grade on him.
Way better than me, man. So
I liked him, but what you said, completely different than what I expected to be. I knew he was explosive. You could see jumping and creating some of those. I called him a wild horse, which was fitting because he was an SMU Mustang.
It's a great way to say it.
And he was. It was just, you could still see it. But how explosive he is with the ball in his hands, he is, I think, truly special. He gets north in a hurry and gets those 5 yards when most guys are at 2 yards, or 10 yards when guys are at 5 yards. And so, I'm with you. Totally different than what I expected him. I knew there's some explosiveness there, but I didn't know it was like this. I didn't know he could generate all this. And the injury stuff, too, I'm just with you. I learned that later. I did like him, but I think his ceiling is even higher than maybe I even expected because of the growth he's already shown this season. Even if he's average at best with the route running, average at best with feel, there's glimpses, and it's like, ooh, this is good. That's good. It's better than, and not to knock him again, but a guy like Toney, where you see flashes, but then you see 12 negative plays in a row. It's like Rice, it's like those negative plays go from 12 to 2 to 1. And it's like, okay, this is something we can work with.
Right. And again, he's a rookie. He's not in. This is Toney's third year? Yeah.
I think so.
21, 22, 20. This is his third year. It feels like he's been in the league forever, man. But
he was at Florida forever. It's like
interesting player. But no, I think Rashee Rice actually just is very emblematic of this team in general because it was kind of that slow burn. It was the guy that wasn't really expected. Again, I know all offseason the talk was like about Sky Moore and where he was going to fit in. And, MVS just out there running not every route because nobody runs every route on this offense in terms of a player participation standpoint. But he's the guy that's running the most routes, and he's a very one-trick pony, So
he has a role.
He has a role.
Yeah.
He has a role. He's very emphasized in this offense.
It's like in basketball, it's the guy that sets picks. He's that version. But take the top off, go out there, and create some space.
And the Toney bros were out in full force, letting you know about his, yards per snap and all that stuff. So Rashee Rice kind of snuck up on you, and that tends to happen with these rookie receivers sometimes. It's always that slow burn. But again, this whole team has felt like a little bit of a slow burn.
Absolutely.
And we'll get more into all that when we talk about the stats for the Chiefs. But I want to switch to the 49ers here. To me, I was really excited about this offense, and I've been impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been exactly what I thought I would be, which is I was very blown away all season long. Again, just kind of general thoughts about this team and how they got here.
Yeah, I was optimistic about the offense, and they exceeded expectations. I thought they'd be very good, top 5-ish, and they are more like top 20-ish in the last 20 years.
Yes.
Like they are a truly recent memory historic offense as far as efficiency and explosive plays, which means you're pretty good at stuff. So Purdy is Purdy. I'm not getting into the MVP talk or anything like that, but like all those discussions, debates. But he does bring, and this has been just ad nauseum, but he does bring the scrambling element, the extended play element, and he pushes the ball. And yes, he has those chaotic moments, but there is something to it that like he has a short memory.
Yeah.
Like he makes a dumb play and he's going to do it next play up. And there's something to that. But okay, getting him out of the way. Then you got the Avengers around him, as people like to say. Kittle's fantastic. Ayuk has leveled up as a guy I was lower on. It's still one of the things I was lower on when he came into the league. Ended up at the perfect spot with the 49ers with Shanahan. Shanahan kind of made him grow as a player. And now you see the dividends being paid because he is, I think, turned into a top 10 receiver. He was a second-team All-Pro for me after this season. The underlying numbers, I'm sure you're very aware of all of them through the roof. But just
I got a tattoo actually.
PPR. But I think just him as a football player, just actually on field, him as a blocker, him with the details, all those things he's not only just like average, he's very good. And now I just think he's just legitimate, like one of the better receivers in the league, which is fantastic because of how he was explosive coming out of Arizona State, but just how he was raw. He could run like two routes. It was like slants and like ghosts. That was like it.
He was legitimately, and I say this as a guy that has been bullish on Ayuk since his rookie year. I think coming into the league, he was extremely raw as a route runner, like you said, and especially like against press, it was low key just not a lot of reps with him, but he didn't know what he was doing. It was lost, and now he's like, again, I'm with you in terms of just ability to beat press man coverage. He's maybe top 5 receiver in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, I can't say enough good things about Brandon Ayuk and just in general, this offense, like, how do you stop him? Where do you focus? Obviously, we'll talk about that when we get into this, but on the other side of the ball, that's been a little bit of, I would say, a less exciting journey, but a journey nonetheless.
I've been trying to wrap my arms around the 49ers defense because at times they feel fantastic and they feel good, and at times I'm like, what are you guys doing? Where's Bosa going? Where's Chase Young going? I still think they have a fantastic pass rush. They are kind of a boom-bust front as far as pass rush and in the run game, where they're going to try and create an explosive sack or a QB hit, a forced fumble, anything, PBU. But I think, Fred Warner is still Fred Warner. Dre Greenlaw is a very good number 2 linebacker. They erase a lot, and that's still true.
Yeah.
I think still you can get after him in the run game. We'll talk about that in a sec, but they could still squeeze you. I always kind of refer to them as like an anaconda defense where it's just tight. Everything just feels tight. Remember Knocked Up? Just tight.
Yeah.
That's how this defense feels a little bit. But they just make you nickel and dime them, and even when you try it, you only get 3-5 chances to like really push it over the top. You better hit them because they're going to squeeze everything else. So they still have that element. I still think they are missing D'Amico Ryans a little bit. They're missing maybe a little bit of Jimmy Ward, even though he's been banged up. And I know Hufanga's got hurt early in the year too. Their safety. But I think this defense still is good, but they do have holes that you can attack, which teams have shown recently, especially in the playoffs.
All right, that's a great transition to just talking about these stats and everything. So what we did here, the people that listen to this show know this is an Andy Barron style secret list. I have no idea what Nate's going to bring to the table. I have no idea really where this discussion is going to go. I bet you probably have better stats than I do, but we'll see. And we'll probably end up playing off each other anyways. We only got 2 damn teams to talk about. Usually when we do the Stat Nerd Thursday podcast, we go 1 through 32. One stat you need to know for every single team. Now we can do I don't know how many you got. I don't know how I got. We'll see how we go here.
Got a handful.
All right, let's talk Kansas City first when they have the ball. Nate, you kick us off here. Give me the one stat people need to know about the Kansas City Chiefs when they have the ball. So this could be 49ers defense or Chiefs offense, obviously.
So, I got a little bit of both. So first and foremost, that this is the 49ers defense is a bottom 5 defense against the run. Yeah. They are 28th in running back rushing success rate allowed. So just to the running back runs, which matters because Mahomes doesn't run the ball. He scrambles, but no design runs.
Yeah, no design runs.
They're 27th in explosive run rate allowed, 29th in first downs per rush allowed. So just all of it. Yeah. So all of that, and that's just to start with. And it would be more of a real thing if this was a typical Chiefs run game under Andy Reid. But they've come along, but they're still So it's kind of more of a movable force versus a stoppable object kind of thing. But you are still giving Andy Reid 2 weeks to prep against a thing that he knows is a blemish that teams recently have attacked with Aaron Jones with the Packers, the Lions run game, other teams before that. So first and foremost, that's what I'm starting with, is that 49ers run defense is holy and not in a biblical way.
No, definitely not. One of my stats was about the Chiefs run game too. They rank 18th in rushing EPA and 26th in rushing success rate, which I always find funny, the teams that are a little bit better from the EPA perspective and then lower in the success rate standpoint, because basically, like we've said all year, that just means that they get you some, 18th is not anything special, but they're a little bit better in terms of like hitting you with some daggers, but not a consistent down-to-down run game. So, and I think this is interesting because I've wanted to have this conversation about the Chiefs run game because in the metrics bear it out. It is what it is. And when watching them, it doesn't feel like that run game. But again, especially as a fantasy show, Pacheco was a great fantasy draft pick. He was great to end the season. I think he was running back I said this like 100 times at media night last night, playing like some higher or lower games with the guys. And I think he was 13th. I should know this off the top of my head because, again, I said it like 100 times last night. But, again,
right.
either way you slice it, he was a great draft pick. He's been great in fantasy. So tell the people why this has been a bit of an issue and why it's not the same type of ground game we expect from an Andy Reid offense.
2 new tackles going up from Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown is gigantic. He has some blemishes as a pass protector, but he is a damn good run blocker. Right. Can I say damn? I'm saying damn. But he's a darn good run blocker. So taking him out and putting in Donovan Smith, who is fine. But he's kind of slightly above replacement level left tackle. And he's been hurt a little bit this year too. So that's already going from even above average to maybe average. Okay, so you got to drop off there. Right tackle, you signed Juwan Taylor, who is also a better pass protector in theory than run blocker. But then you're going from a guy, Wiley, who's been in the system, who was solid. Again, but you're going from solid to Juwan Taylor, who's kind of been average. He's been paid a lot. He's supposed to be good. And so, he's average. He's replacement level. He's startable, but it's not good.
Right.
Okay, so now you get to the interior. Joe Tooney's hurt right now. That's been late in the season. But Creed Humphrey has had an okay year, had a couple weird plays this year. But then Trey Smith has kind of fallen off this year. So just inconsistencies with the offensive line. Travis Kelce, as brilliant he is as a receiver, is a negative as a run blocker. So that takes away a little bit there. And then Pacheco, who can be explosive, has one of the funniest running styles. Like everybody memes it and everything. He's very inconsistent with his vision. And that is where it is. He's going to be a boom-busty running back no matter what the offensive line is doing because that's just how he is. That's why he got drafted in the 7th round. Right. He just doesn't have that natural vision. He can hit it. When he hits it, he hits it. But there's times he gets himself in trouble, looking to cut, looking to bounce things when he's not supposed to. And that can lead to just, inadequate run game if you don't have a second back that you can really rely on to kind of keep the chains going. So that's where it's been the whole season. Again, like I said, it's gotten a little better in the playoffs. They're running a little bit different types of run schemes, and using different personnel, which I'll get to in a sec. But they're using that, and that's helped out a little bit. But it's still at best.
I think that lack of a second pitch has been notable this year. I mean, Jerick McKinnon has been hurt, and I think they really were non-committal about bringing him back, and then they end up doing it. And again, I just don't think he's given them what he has previously, especially because of injuries. CEH is. CH.
He's there.
Yeah, he's there. He's still
good
around.
Teammate.
Hell of a teammate. But they haven't had that second pitch, and Pacheco has had to be everything for them, which obviously has borne out good metrics and numbers for fantasy. Yes. But I think you see it in the success rate and stuff like that. It hasn't been consistent. And I do think the 2 issues you outlined there from the run blocking standpoint, like the performance of these offensive lines, which, by the way, I've been saying all year that, like, we've been harping on the Chiefs receivers and stuff, like, and those tackles might have been a bigger issue than the receivers. And that's the thing. And it's same thing in that situation where is it the receiver, is it the lack of timing, or is it the fact that, like, Mahomes doesn't have time back there? And it's the same in the run game where, Pacheco's boom bust. He's not, hitting vision. Yep. He doesn't have the best vision. He's not hitting the lanes, whatever. But the blocking isn't there either. It's like these issues for this team have like compounded on themselves.
Somebody's messing up at one time at the most inopportune time. And that's why it feels so. I think the Chiefs are on a lot of national TV games. So I think when people watch it, once they get outside that opening script, they're like, man, it just feels, inconsistent. And that's why. It's because these Chiefs offenses have always had that run game or had a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. So they have Kelce and a guy that you can just pepper. Just 5-yard gains. They don't kind of have that little single hitter right now.
Yeah, Juju's such a funny player because did you see what Jacoby Myers said about him recently? He said
that's the funniest rivalry that we didn't know we were going to get because of the contract stuff.
Well, the way he said it was, they couldn't find like an extra $1 million for me or whatever. But they signed Juju, and like Juju, he's a good player, but I think the NFL just caught up to him, because of the knees and stuff that. And I love that from Jacoby.
Literally caught up to him.
Yeah. Quite literally, yeah, exactly.
I love Jacoby. He's an awesome player. Yeah. He's so good.
Like I said, Bill, I could have saved you from that. $29.99. I could have saved you from that one.
Free agency was just like, all right, because you see the underlying numbers, like, of course you do, but it was just like, okay, I look at those, I'm like, okay, he's up there and everything. All right, I'm gonna watch this guy. It's like, this guy's winning from the slot. Yeah, he's winning outside, winning against man. I'm like, all right, what? Really? There's not a big market for this guy? Like freaking Christian Kirk got paid.
I know.
This guy does more. So,
right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's a better player. Yeah,
butt off. A big fan of Myers.
Yeah, Chiefs could use somebody like that.
Right.
But
it's literally the exact type of guy they need. I know, it's so funny.
So what do you think, just in terms of how this Chiefs running team, for what it is and how it has been better lately, how do you think that matches up, particularly with this 49ers run defense?
I give Andy Reid and Andy Heck, the offensive line coach of the Chiefs, the benefit of the doubt. Again, they have 2 weeks. Like Andy Reid off a bye is like,
right.
It's a thing. It's notorious how good he is off a bye. They did this against the Eagles as well last year. I'll just get into like the other stat. What I think they'll use is the Chiefs started using 3 tight ends more, 13 personnel. They've done that a bunch last year. They kind of got away from it, I think, because they were trying to work out the receivers. And then they were like, all right, we got to win some games. All right, let's not mess around.
I think that like that idea is pervasive over everything we talk about with Kansas City now.
They're the only team that could do that.
Yeah, well, just like the Patriots used to do that every September. It's like, what's wrong with the Patriots? What's going on here? It's like they're just kind of trying to figure stuff out. Yeah, it's preseason. And I feel like the Chiefs maybe pushed that preseason into like October a little bit this year, as they're like, I'll never forget in week 1, I'm like, who the hell rotates like 7 receivers like this, just throwing guys out? Like, no,
it's like a training camp practice. Like, give them all reps.
Yeah, even after week 1, it's like, forget the Chiefs receivers, okay? Because like nobody's going to play enough, at least for now, until they sort this thing out, which they've gotten to now. But again, sorry to jump in there, but that's just the pervasive way that everything feels about Kansas City.
It felt like that Packers game was like when they're like, okay, all right, enough of this. And I actually thought Mahomes did a fantastic job of like not blaming the receivers. He blamed everybody else.
Yeah.
But that's leadership. It really is. That's good.
I talked to Sky Moore about that last night, and just, a guy that has struggled all year, has not been able to get on the same page with Pat Mahomes. And I just asked him, like, what does that like mean to you, that he never, like I just said, he never threw you guys under the bus. Ever. And he's like, yeah, he's just the best, like, for that.
Awesome.
Because I think these guys all know, like, I'm sure even as a receiver, whether this guy is the man and he's going to have your back and you have that feeling, he goes up to the press conference and like, you got to be feeling like, oh, jeez, God Almighty, like, what's, nobody's going to blame him. A couple weirdos on Twitter whatever, but nobody serious is going to blame him. So like, is he going to say something bad about me? And he never does, which is great.
Yes, I know. This year has been. Again, it's like he truly always is going to be an MVP candidate, but like this year, like maybe just it's like every time I watch this guy, like I appreciate him more. Even stuff like he like changed his cadence this year to help out the offensive line. Yeah, but just it's like, God, he's just adding layers. He's not even 30, and like there's people already sick of him. All the people with the UNLV Raiders practice facility. That happens every year. One team practices at the highest college there. One team practices at the NFL facility. It's how it goes.
Yeah,
they practiced at Arizona State, I think, last year. Arizona. So it's like, I don't know. It's one of those things where now people are already sick of him. It's like, strap in, guys. We got like 8 more years of this at least.
Were you at media night last night?
No, opening night? No.
Oh my God, they had like the place was loaded with 49ers fans, and I mean, just that was part of it, obviously. But anytime any Kansas City Chief player like spoke on the main stage, just so many boos. And yeah, you post I post a video about Mahomes on Instagram or whatever, and all you get is like, this is the type of I think it was performative and like patronizing and all this stuff. This is why we're all sick of Mahomes. Like, geez, what do you want us to say? Like, he's great at everything.
He's great. I watch this in other sports. It's like everyone gets sick of the guy that's the greatest. All right, back to the tight ends.
Yeah, back to playing with 3 tight ends on the field.
The real. This is
enough of Mahomes.
This is why you have me on.
Great.
So you
Please,
go Mahomes.
Nate.
Yeah, this is the title of the episode. It's Mahomes and 3 tight ends. That's what Nate Tice talks about that for 15 minutes. But so the 3 tight end looks, they got to it last year. Why that matters is because I mentioned before, Kelsey is receiver first.
Yeah.
Defenses treat him as a receiver, so they match with lighter bodies. When they get to 3 tight ends, they make defenses go, all right, are we going to commit to heavier bodies, so stop the run just naturally, physics, or are we going to stay in lighter bodies and maybe dare that they can run out 3 tight ends over and over against us? The Eagles last year in the Super Bowl dared that they can match them with lighter bodies, and they got steamrolled, and that was a Pacheco game. So this year, starting in the playoffs, the Chiefs had used, where was it? Okay, here we go. They used 12 or 13 personnel, so 2 tight ends or more, 27 of 47 snaps against the Bills. So over half were with multi-tight end looks. They used 13 personnel with 3 tight ends in the wildcard game against the Dolphins, the most they ever have with Mahomes as a starter.
Wow.
So they've just, since the playoffs started, they're like, tight ends,
yeah.
let's get the tight ends out there. Now, of course, the receivers are all healthy, so we'll see how that goes. But I do think this is a thing because the 49ers are worse out of base when they have 3 linebackers on the field. So this is something that Andy Reid will pull. And in the playoffs, he's pulled it more than a dozen times in every game. So get ready for some Blake Bell and Noah Gray action out there. That's, again, moving those needles for this podcast. But really, this is going to be a schematic advantage that they have. And I think they'll lean into it because they've done it before.
Yeah, I mean, you get Blake Bell's name on the pod. Like, we are just subscribers.
Belldozer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Noah Gray, the fullback tight end from Duke. Yeah. Really moving those numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. I can just hear the subscribers to this podcast is going up and up and up and up and up. All right. I do want to talk about the Chiefs pass game, just kind of since you kind of brought up the tight ends and everything there. My stat on that is all we talked about. A lot of people, the big dorks talked about the battle of the NFC Championship was going to be the middle of the field.
Yep.
You know, against this 49ers defense, like you mentioned, that is still the thing that if they've struggled this year, they still own that middle of the field. The Lions passing game, I mean, Jared Goff, baby, he loves that middle of the field, and that's where things are going to go. And we talked about that a lot on the preview show with Dalton last week. Results-wise, Jared Goff went 7 of 10, 7.6 yards per attempt, 125.4 passer rating on non-deep throws over the middle of the field. So that's like under 15 yards in the NFC Championship game. So I'm curious from your perspective, because to me, this Chiefs passing game flows through that middle of the field as well. Obviously, with Mahomes, they're going to have plays available to them that are not available to the Detroit Lions just because of who the quarterback is. Jared Goff short circuits anytime he's got to move a little bit.
He's just like blacks out. He's like, anything can happen.
I think I said to Robert Mays, your co-host yesterday, I was like, he would have made a hell of a javelin player. Just sit there and launch it, baby.
And launch it. Or like in 1992. Everyone was just like,
oh my God, yeah.
Just heavy play action, 2 routes. Yeah, let's do this.
Top 3 quarterback in 1992. Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Jared Goff was he even born in 1992?
Well, he's drafted 15, 16. So, yeah. Right? No.
I don't know.
Probably not. 94?
94.
94?
Born 94.
Yeah, I'm doing the math. 22. Yeah, 94. So,
so yeah, too bad. He should have been born, about 20 years earlier. Anyways, point of that is, obviously there's going to be plays available to the Chiefs that are not available to the Lions. But still, I feel like because of where Rashee Rice wins, what we were just talking about, because of these tight ends, obviously most notably Travis Kelce, they're going to want to own that middle of the field as well. How do they match up from a passing game standpoint versus that defense in the middle of the field specifically?
Yeah, even considering like stuff like bubbles and flats, which are slot routes, quick hitters, Rashee Rice's game really.
Yeah.
I will call that part of the middle of the field too. Mm-hmm. I think that is a natural way to attack how this 49ers defense plays. You're trying to put the slot player in a bind on those. So that's not Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. It's Lenore, who still is a good player. But you're trying to put him in a bind. The Bengals attack this. The Jaguars try to attack this. Multiple offenses try to attack that little thing. The Lions a little bit. Packers a little bit. But I do think that over the middle of the field, it's going to be those 5-6 yards. It's really going to come down to tackling, it's going to sound so fundamental, but it really matters because Mahomes is going to pepper it. So can one guy break a tackle? One guy pop out of there? Kelce will be the guy that usually they work over the middle, but this is where you might see the Noah Gray stuff. Where you see just the underneath stuff. This might see a running back stuff that just like everything's downfield, get the linebackers way out of there and just pepper them underneath and let them try to go to work. So it's hard. Like, this is what the 49ers want you to do. They want you to try and make a living off 4-yard gains. Like, Phillip Rivers would have loved it. But most quarterbacks get bored. Yeah. And Mahomes doesn't. And so watch the first quarter of last week against the Ravens. That's just, Mahomes is like, I'm not bored. This is great. I'll just throw 6-yard gains over and over. It's going to be a little bit more of that. He has to be patient, but he's fine doing that.
There's something with quarterback play where you have to just, like, not get bored with the mundane. You just have to this 5-yard flat route, whatever. Like, I'm cool throwing this little bubble. I'm fine throwing it. No big deal. Like, this is all part of the offense. Like, taking joy in the mundane.
Get on base.
Sometimes. Just get on base instead of just like gotta take the shot. You see that and that's a differentiator between a guy like Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. And I don't know. I think Josh Allen's the second best quarterback in the NFL. I'm right there. But that's the that's the difference there is I do think Josh still gets bored.
He does.
And that's what's beautiful about Mahomes and like the development. And again, this is where you get subscribers.
Mahomes, Allen.
Just Mahomes, Josh Allen.
Quarterback tiers.
Yeah, all right, start ranking them for me. No, but seriously, I do think that's going to be really interesting. Like, I love your point about can they get a Rashee Rice like in the slot and maybe run him more on out-breaking routes as opposed to some of these crossers over the middle, because, I mean, that's fine. You can do that, and that's great, and I still think that's going to be a big part of the offense, but getting to some of those perimeter quick-hitting throws, and can you get Rashee Rice breaking a tackle? I mean, I don't – again, I just can't think of any of these other receivers like coming up big in this moment. But
I was like, oh, yeah, you pepper him over the middle. I'm like, Watson, I guess. Justin Watson, I guess. But I think, too – just even to bring up the Rice stuff is like it's going into. I'm spoiling. I was looking at receptions prop for Rice, but it's at 7, and I was like,
I thought I saw it 6.5.
This morning. 6.5. Okay, but I was like, that is they know exactly what I was like. What I was aiming at.
It's a lot, but and last week it was 6.5, but it was at plus odds. Again, we're going to talk about this.
We're going to talk about that.
I don't think I've made more money this year on anything other than hammering Rashee Rice over receptions, like for most of the season. But I'm with you that now at this point I'm like,
they caught up.
They know what
they know,
they know, as in the books know, and the 49ers definitely know.
Right.
So.
And have 2 weeks, and it's like, I know, and especially the defense that are like them, they watch that same stuff, and it's like, oh, that's exactly what they use. I know, so I know that one is that one I'm still like hanging on. I don't want to go under yet or over yet, but that's one I've just been looking at all week.
All right, you got anything else on the Chiefs, or should we move to the 49ers?
I'll go one last thing is no QB has a higher scramble rate against zone coverage than Patrick Mahomes. So
that's so interesting because, and again, we talk about this all the time on fantasy shows that typically when you see heavy man coverage teams, the quarterback is going to scramble because obviously the defenders turn their back to the quarterback, whatever. But with Mahomes, it's not not as clean.
He uses his legs as a check down, and so he lets everything get out of there. It's okay. I'm going to go, and so but he has the highest rate. The 49ers run a ton of zone coverage, so maybe look at some home scrambles, which is you should be expecting.
We might be talking about that later.
I know.
When we get to the prop
I didn't know when to throw that one in there because I was like, do I say the prop or say it right now? But I'll throw it in right now.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the stats you need to know when the San Francisco 49ers have the ball. And we're back. Let's talk about when the 49ers have the ball. Nate, you get us started. And this one, I actually left a lot of room blank for the Chiefs, but this one I had a lot more fun writing stuff down because it's not that it's a better offense. I think you can say it's a better offense this year. That doesn't mean they're going to win the game, whatever, but it's just a more fun offense to talk about.
It's a very fun offense and a very fun defense. And it's a classic styles mixed fights. I'll start with so this is just talk about how good this 49ers offense was. I already kind of hinted at this. But the 49ers have generated the highest EPA per play in recent memory and at a 1% rate since the year 2000, a top 1% rate, I should say, or top 99th percentile, however you want to say it. But this is truly one of the most efficient and explosive offenses we've seen. And I know I hinted at that earlier, but legitimately, underlying numbers, everything you look at, run game, pass game, they're good against the blitz. They're good against, if you want to drop 8 defenders. They're good against loaded boxes. They're good against light boxes. They have a lot of answers. Really, the one formula, the one way you break them is, force a turnover.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone wants to force a turnover. Sweet, yeah.
What a revelation.
What a revelation. Catch the ball. But no, that is, it's more of an emphasis that this offense is legit. In this offense, even if they've had some close games in the playoffs, it's the playoffs. That should be how it goes. But this offense is legitimately one of the best ones we've seen in quite some time. And one that, it's fun to watch when they're operating at full force.
I'm glad you just started off with that note there because I think that gets lost in because, the Purdy discourse and Purdy debates is nauseating and it's just like
it's too much.
It's way too much. And I do think that we end up losing – we missed the forest for the trees here. That this is while we're focusing on the quarterback and everything that he does or doesn't bring to the table, whatever. We miss the fact that this is not just a good offense, not just the best offense in the league. This is one of the best offenses we've seen in recent memory, and it is obviously a great matchup. I think defensively with Spags, that's going to be fun to break down. But I think that's just a good table setter to remind people that we can Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers, and John Lynch, and everybody here has built the Death Star.
Yeah.
And like now, can they just not have the proton torpedo go in at the end? And can that one little weakness that they left?
Yes.
Can the Rebels not hit that? And can I mean, damn,
the Rebels that also won the reigning Super Bowl
okay, we're losing the analogy, but you get the point. Like, can they just that small margin for error, that one little weakness, catch the ball, get some turnovers, or can they avoid that situation? Because then they'll go down in history, I think, for the efforts that they built they did to build this offense.
And also just that he always have Kyle Shanahan have that feather in the cap. Oh, it's like no matter what happens with Purdy in the long run, the long term, it's like no matter what, it's like, oh, I use Purdy in this team that I handpicked every single guy and we beat Mahomes. Like that's another thing, just another feather in the cap for someone's legacy.
All right, I want to start talking about the run game for the 49ers. 49ers have, and this is interesting, we're going to have an extended conversation with Austin Eckler on Thursday's episode, kind of talking about the transition of this 49ers run game, because I'm sure you've talked about it all year long, and really even last year once McCaffrey got there, they transitioned from being almost all strictly outside zone to they do a little bit of everything now. They run man concepts, they run duo, all the whole thing. And that's been so fun to watch. But still, again, bread and butter of this team. They're fifth in terms of rushing success rate in the NFL on zone run concepts. They rank third overall in zone runs. Like, they still do that extremely well. And that does match up with Kansas City, who allows the fifth highest success rate on zone runs. So talk a little bit about that matchup specifically. And look, obviously McCaffrey is a stud. That's part of it. This offensive line, I mean, for the 49ers hasn't been one of the better units this year. Like, and every 49ers fan always has to remind you of that, but still. So I just wanted to kind of focus in on that. Like, how do the 49ers match up from a zone run perspective against specifically this defense in Kansas City?
With how Spagnuolo is that he's so creative and wild and creates havoc and a lot of funky looks, a lot of moving parts. What zone runs naturally do is wad it up. They have an outside zone run to a tight end side is going to have answers no matter what the defensive look is. And that's why they see a lot of zone, the Chiefs defense does, because a lot of offenses don't want to pull somebody. They want to pull a guard, pull a tackle, because that creates natural boom bust. It's a guy's moving, another guy's moving. Yeah, you might catch him, it's gone, but you also might lose 7 yards. And that's what the Chiefs want you to do. They get bored of running zone. And 49ers are not going to get bored running zone. If you watch other teams from this offense, the Packers offense earlier this year, even who else? The Dolphins offense earlier this year. The Dolphins were trying to do other things, and it just was just like, and then the second half, they're like, all right, run zone. Go back to the basics. So that's a lot of blitz-happy defenses like Spagnuolo, Brian Flores with the Vikings, Wink Martindale recently of the Giants. That didn't end great, but with the Giants, these defenses that blitz a lot will face the most zone. They'll face the least amount of pullers. So one thing to their advantage is that, you can catch them sometimes, but over time, they usually get better, especially this Chiefs defense. I noticed when I watch them, Chris Jones also starts trying in the second half. That also helps against the run. But also, they start getting a feel for what you're trying to do. The safeties start closing. Justin Reed starts getting involved more. And so they get better as the game goes along. But you can get them early because they'll wad it up. The run games will wad up that funky look, those guys twisting everything, and then just pop it out the outside. So it's kind of but they know what you're trying to do. Yeah. So over time, they're going to figure it out. So it's like, okay, we got 6 chances at this before they figure out we got it. And no one does that better than Kyle Shanahan. So that's going to be those first 6-ish, 7-ish zone runs are going to be huge in this game because they're probably all going to come in like the first 20 plays. I was
going to say, can we bet on like the scripted plays?
Well, one of my bets, I'll just even spoil, is first quarter over because it's 7.5. So you have two of the best opening script coaches ever, like are full high octane right now. Like, that's why I'm betting on that one because I think they're both going to be killing it on the first drives.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's a good explanation for kind of why this defense, like you can get them early, and that's a good way. Man, it's so funny talking about this Chiefs team where we focus so much on the offense and everything, but I've been saying on this show, like if they win the Super Bowl this year, like we will remember it as the Spags year because that's how these like dynasties and these legacies play out. It's like different chapters. You can do that obviously with the Patriots team. There was the early Brady years, then there was they didn't win the Super Bowl, but like then there was the Randy Moss, Wes Welker era, and then there was obviously the Gronk era. Right. And now I feel like in this particular era of Chiefs football, the offense is figuring itself out. It's kind of finding itself, whatever. Mahomes is finding joy in the mundane. I love that you also said that about the Super Bowl is all about being okay with being bored.
It is.
Like the same thing with McCaffrey and the zone runs and everything like that. But it feels like this is the era of Kansas City. And maybe it's just going to be back half of last year, this year, and maybe next year, maybe not even. I don't know. But this is the era where the defense is so critical. So that's a good note for just like how they match up from a run game perspective.
And I love the sequences that these teams go. I mean, the Patriots, their first Super Bowl year, they came out as a team. Can you imagine saying now, oh, yeah, the GOAT, Tom Brady.
Right, yeah.
Everyone's saying the best quarterback, best player ever. Yeah, he came out as a team on his first Super Bowl. It's like, that's the difference between the later years. It was like, oh, it's Brady and everybody else. He's making everybody better. So it's just funny, that transition. That's what happens when you start for 20-ish years. Exactly. You get all those starts and everything. Manning had fun kind of ebbs and flows with the Colts too, just his kind of auxiliary parts as well. So, no, I love that. I totally agree that this is like Spags' year. And Mahomes is, this guy's good. It's like, that's what it is for this season.
All right, what else you got for the 49ers? And
really, it's just that it's really tied into what you said, is the Chiefs' run defense is 18th running back success rate. I think their DVOA number, which is no longer Football Outsiders, it's FTN, but they are lower on them as well when it's adjusted for defenses. But I think this is all tied into, and I wrote about this on the overhang a little bit last week, is that Chris Jones does not try against the run in the first 3 quarters because he had heavy contract incentives.
I was going to say, he's got those sack incentives to be thinking about, okay?
Contract incentives. So he knew that he gets paid for sacks and he gets paid for team wins.
Yeah, he didn't get paid no TFLs,
I didn't see TFLs, I didn't see total tackles. But yeah, the stat I had, and I'll just kind of reiterate this from the article, was that he had 9 tackles against the run for the first 3 quarters throughout the entire season. And it's like, okay, what does that mean?
That doesn't sound mind-blowing, but it is mind-blowing.
Yeah, 9 tackles against the run in 3 quarters. This guy plays 60 snaps a game. And the other all-pros from the team from this year, I think it was Aaron Donald, Justin Madubuike, and I'm blanking on the third one. Dexter Lawrence. All of them had 30 or more in the first 3 quarters. He had 9.
That's incredible.
He had the same amount of run tackles as like guys that like were playing, like Josh Uche, who's like a designated pass rusher. Mm-hmm. So, but the thing was last week he has an incentive to be a first-team All-Pro, which he got, and make the Super Bowl. And so last week he turned it up. He cranked it up.
Go.
There are no incentives for a Super Bowl win. So
interesting.
Curious how Chris Jones comes out in the first half. I think he'll be fine because it's the freaking Super Bowl.
It's the freaking Super Bowl.
So, but that is something that has been. It's more kind of an anecdote from this season about how contract incentives for some of these star players really matter.
That is, like I said, it doesn't sound mind blowing, but it is mind blowing. Again, I can hear the subscribers rolling in as we're talking tight ends
and Chris Jones
first defense. 3-quarter like tackles or whatever.
It sounds so niche, but it's like when you watch it on film and you see him get blocked, he just goes. Like, just kind of, I'm good. He's saving himself in the 4th quarter.
That's why you bring Nate Tice in for the sexy stats.
So I get the big bucks, man.
That's why we pay him the big bucks. All right, I do want to just talk about the 49ers pass game real quick before we move into the props and everything like that. So the stat I have, the 49ers lead the NFL in passing yards per game out of 21 personnel with 117.5 per game. And they're the only team with more than 300 yards throwing out of 22 personnel. So, again, multiple tight ends, multiple running backs. Like, I feel, and again, we focus so much on Ayuk and Debo as we should. Those guys are both, to me, in the superstar tier of wide receivers. Just love watching those guys play. But I think we're going to – and look, they can get in those personnel packages and throw some heaters to Ayuk and stuff like that. But I think this game is going to be very heavy, condensed formation focused, both from a run game and a pass game standpoint with this 49ers off.
Yeah, and it's what they want to live in anyways. It's that modern old school stuff, that modern retro. I think they call that for baseball stadiums. Well, we're going to call it for Shanahan's offense. But I think what they want to do with it too is that when you have a guy again like Spagnuolo, super aggressive, super funky looks, when you get into heavier personnel and make them go heavier personnel, they become, in theory, more basic.
Right.
In theory, more predictable. In theory, again, this is all theory because Spags is probably the least predictable one. Yeah. But yeah, it's like going a guy that's like, okay, he's chaotic to maybe like 90% as chaotic. That's what they're trying to do. But I was looking into this stuff for the article this week, so this is great, the 21 personnel stuff. This was more scheme. I think it's really cool how the Chiefs try to mitigate this when they're like, hey, again, I know what you know.
Right.
What I know, what you know kind of situation is they'll put a guy, I'm going to spoil a little bit, but they'll move Leo Chanel around, and they try to use him as a linebacker for the Chiefs. They use him to kind of create bad angles for the offense, bad blocking angles, bad weights. 180-pound receiver on Chanel was 260, 250-something. So they're trying to create those moments, and it's kind of cool to watch Spags try like throughout the year going like, I'm going to use him here. Did that work? Oh, it worked. All right. And then you see it the next week. Now he had to do it like 6 times. And then the next week it's like 10 times. Someone figures out an answer, and then it's like, all right, Spags is like, okay, here's my change up. Here's the blitz look off of that. So that is something I'm just curious to see what, again, 2 weeks. What does he come up with? Because the 49ers are going to attack it.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of talk about Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, as there naturally should be. Those guys are great players, but the Chiefs linebackers have been a great unit this. Like linebackers are back, Nate.
They are. Seriously. This is a ongoing theory and thought we've had throughout the season is that there's a dire pandemic of no linebackers right now. From college, the highest prospects even coming into this draft are probably third rounders.
Right.
It's a thing. So having linebackers is like kind of the meta for like team building right now, even if some teams have stumbled into it. Some teams are like, yeah, I totally meant to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally overdrafted those guys. Yeah, sure. But really, you see the good teams, all the good defenses have a bunch of linebackers to throw out there.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating bit of off-season discourse.
Yes.
Like, just how do teams replicate this? These final four teams, Detroit probably fourth among this group, but still, 49ers, great linebackers.
Yes.
Chiefs, great linebackers. Baltimore, obviously great linebackers.
Yep.
And probably the ones that have invested the most in the position.
Yep.
So I do think that's going to be a big off-season conversation point. Kind of last thing I wanted to hit here on just Chiefs coverage and how that matches up with these receivers. According to Fantasy Points data, they play man coverage at the sixth highest rate overall. On third and fourth down, Kansas City plays man at 43.2%, but they play two high safeties on 67% of their snaps. That's the most in the NFL, Nate. And 49ers yards per route run against two high in the regular season and the playoffs. Yeah. Devo, just freak stuff. 3.11, Ayuk 2.19, and Kittle 1.76. So when you think about how this Kansas City Chiefs defense, from a structural perspective, what they like to do with obviously rotating coverages, and when they do get into the third and fourth down packages where it's more man coverage but still a lot of two high safeties, I do think that matches up really well, like for a favorable matchup for the 49ers receivers, right or wrong.
Yes, or right. Because I think it's when you have, again, the Avengers, defenses don't have usually the Avengers on their back end. So if you're going to play man, one guy should, in theory, again, have a matchup advantage, just naturally. Is it going to be Kittle? Might get caught on one of the linebackers. It might be CMC on one of the linebackers.
Yeah.
When two-man, like you're talking about, too high, or they do a quarters variation. I don't want to get too deep into this, but there's other stuff they do. But they'll double team two of the receivers. What that creates is through the middle, someone's going to have an ISO on one of the linebackers, which, again, should be with this team. Most teams don't have those guys that can attack it. The 49ers have Kittle and CMC. And even a guy like Juwan Jennings is like a very, very solid auxiliary player.
Juwan Jennings. I love Jennings. I had a 3, 4, 5 minute conversation with him last night at opening night.
Great.
Just about receiver blocking.
He's the best.
I don't think he was – I was like, I watch a lot of receivers. This is what I do. I was like, but I don't want to talk about routes and catching and all that stuff. I want to talk blocking. And, let me tell you what, if that's not – I told the Yahoo Sports social team, get ready for that thing to go super viral.
I'm the market for that. So
it's going to get 600 likes, but it's all going to be Nate Tice and all of his burners.
Just going over, just go over and over and over, just liking it, retweeting it. Did you see Jennings?
He's awesome.
He is awesome. But saying all that is that someone's going to have an advantage, a matchup advantage, and also, and again, don't want to spoil the props, but this might lead into some pretty scrambling opportunities.
Perfect. Well, let's just get right into the props then, because my last stat there does transition to, I'll give out my first prop, which to me, I do think Debo over 58.5 receiving yards.
Mine as well.
Minus 115, because the way I think about it, when they get into those third and fourth down situations where I do think that the receivers will be emphasized, Jerry Sneed's a great player. Look, Ayuk is a great player too. He can get over on a great cornerback. It's so funny, Nate. Like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago in fantasy football analysis, it was just like all wide receiver cornerback matchups. And like nobody really talks about that anymore because there's more zone coverage and there's just so much.
And there is the layers to it.
Yeah, exactly. There's obviously, even back then it was kind of a fraught conversation, but now in 2022, 2023, 2024, this season, I'm sure, it's just not, like, defenses don't play that way. The defensive meta of the league has shifted so that we don't have these ISO matchups like that. And receiver usage has shifted too. I mean, we're talking about a guy like Debo. It's like you're never going to put the number one corner on him for 90% of snaps. Right. It's not possible. But again, just that Ayuk Jennings matchup, that Ayuk Sneed matchup, I'm fascinated to watch that. Yeah. But I feel like when they get into those two-man or two high safety situations on third and fourth down, that's going to bring Debo like on these over the middle routes, stuff like that. So for me, I think he's going to have a pretty big performance this week.
I have all the Debo overs. So those were all going to be mine as well. So I'll just get into it. I like him over 4.5 receptions. Terrible juice right now. It's minus 140. So I like your yards one. That would be the one I'll kind of pound heavily. I see it the same way. I also see over 2.5 rushing attempts. also terrible odds right now. So if you can get like 3.5 and get the juice down a little bit. But I think that with Debo, and even just talking about the too high stuff, the Chiefs will run some cover 2 variations, which is you're going to cloud an outside receiver.
Right.
Whereas I line up on the outside.
Exactly.
So as I open up, the middle. And that's Debo's opportunity. Another thing, we just talked about this with Rashee Rice, getting all those bubbles and flats. And the other thing is, same thing with Debo.
Yeah, I was going to say, the king of the bubbles and the flats.
Yes, and that's how you attack this Chiefs defense. Even if they're not bringing a blitz, they'll bring simulated and creeper looks, which is rushing 4, but creating a blitz look. They'll bring in McDuffie. How you counteract that as an offense, just on first and second downs, you throw those bubbles and flats. So that's why I like a lot of catches. I see him getting peppered underneath, jet sweeps. Every offense from this tree against the Chiefs defense has run a reverse. So I guarantee a reverse is going to be run at some point. Not sure if it's Ayuk.
I was going to say, can we bet that?
I know, just the one specific play call.
one jet sweep.
Not an end around.
You think MGM's offering that up? I don't know.
Did you see that somebody had a prop for miles per hour run?
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember which site it was, but someone had that, like the next gen stats, who will be the fastest miles per hour tracked, 22.5, whatever it is, 21.5.
I don't know if I can say this, and maybe they cut it out of the show, but like if you bet that, call the gambling helpline.
That's a new one.
Like the hotline that they read out, like that's for you.
That one is just like, I can't, really? Like, okay, we're getting deep now. That's,
like, how are you going to be on, NFL.nextgenstats.com, like refreshing it after every play? Like, how do you even track that? It's like, okay, I know if I bet the longest reception or whatever, like, okay, well, there was a 20-yarder.
I was trying to find some sicko bets, too, to, like, throw in here. And, like the craziest one I got was, like, first team to call a timeout. Oh, well, that's the Chiefs, minus 115. I think it's the Chiefs. Because I can see the panic timeout, third down, or, like, a short yard situation.
That's a good one because, I mean, Shanahan has no self-control with the timeouts either.
And the thing was, Shanahan used to be awesome never calling timeouts because he actually took it as a point of pride because, he got the play calling clean.
Yeah.
And then now he kind of like doesn't give a crap anymore. Like he kind of is just like, I'll burn him. But it's like, I don't know. I can see him being prepped and wired in early. So
he's dialed in.
That was my one sicko one I want to throw in here. I got plenty more sickos.
That's perfect. I love that. But yeah, I think this is a big Debo performance. And I do wonder, just last point in that, we talk about Ayuk on the outside, like, how many times, especially in big games, big moments, have we seen him run an outbreaker against man coverage and Purdy hits him with that? But again, I know that you know. The whole thing there, I feel like the Chiefs are going to know that. Again, is that going to be where that bracket coverage, that cloud coverage is? And again, just opening that space for Debo. That's really where I can see him thriving there. All right, you gave us. The sicko stats with the timeouts, but give us another one.
Oh man, so keeping on the 49ers offense, I think that because all those bubbles, flats, and everything like that, even screens being thrown, I think there's going to be a lot of Purdy peppering. So I'm betting Purdy over completion 22 times, 22 or more completions, I should say, at plus 105. So I actually like that one, a decent number. Attempts is 32. That seemed a little high for me, but it's minus 105. So that one was also I looked at, and just keeping it on Purdy. Just might as well just bunch these all in here. I do like Purdy rushing over 3.5 times, plus 110. The Chiefs will allow scrambles because they run so much zone blitzing and zone looks, they have eyes on the quarterback. So it's a lot more like 8-yard scrambles, 10-yard scrambles, 6-yard scrambles, not the back-breaking 25-yarders. Purdy has been looking to scramble more against funkier defenses, so rushing attempts, that's what I like. And then he's at 13 yards, but it's minus 135, so I'm keeping an eye on that one too.
Yeah, I said the same thing there, that his just rushing stuff with like 135, the whole thing was kind of for me. But I do see a lot of Purdy scrambles for sure in this one. That's been a fun part of his game to me.
It is
just like seeing him take.
He's chaotic. It's fun.
I love watching him play. Like again, I don't get into the whole debate.
That's why I get annoyed by it. It's like I don't mind him. I don't want to like be like I hate him or love him. It's just like I like watching him play. Is that enough?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Or just like I don't want to constantly be looking for like, see, there's the moment. Like that's not a fun way to consume the sport.
It's not. There's 120 football plays. Like everyone focuses on 2.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, man, I'm excited to see him. I also said, though, again, all the nice things I just said about Purdy, I'm going to go ahead and take the over on 0.5 interceptions for him.
I also have that
one. I think they get him at least once.
I have that one. I have one tied into, so this is perfect.
One of the funniest, this is when you I mean, you're a professional podcaster. When you can talk about like seeing tweets and be very not descriptive about it. One of the funniest tweets I've seen recently is like everybody's focused on and I don't know who said it, but one of the funniest things I've seen was everybody's focused on the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift relationship. Somebody really needs to talk about Brock Purdy and the relationship he has with like Beelzebub or whatever, because he just got to deal with the devil. Nobody catches his interceptions, but I feel like here in the Super Bowl, with all the funky coverages and mixed up looks that Spags does, they get him one time.
And the Chiefs DBs are very good. I haven't even talked about them yet, but I had this one as well. I had Purdy throw an interception at -120. So yeah, that was one. And tied into that, I have Chiefs special teams or defense touchdown.
Nice.
+600.
Sicko.
That's a real sicko one. I'm not going to get into it, but I even looked up special team stats just to see if there's an advantage. They're kind of neutral. Chiefs are a little better in special teams, not as much as I thought. So, but just like you said, I think he's going to give him one. It could be the, catch and run. And this Chiefs defense has done that several times this year. So, and maybe it's just that Dolphins game is in my head, when they stripped the ball from Tyreek Hill and then ran it in when they were playing in Germany. But yeah, so that was another little sicko one tied into your Purdy interception.
Yeah, I feel like they get him one time. I'll throw another one out here. Actually, let's talk about the Mahomes one, because I did want to cheat and say the attempts. I think it was 3.5 attempts, but it's -130. So like, do we feel confident enough in him scrambling against his own coverage defense to go over 26.5 rush yards?
I do.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Bigger the games, the more he's going to use his legs.
Yeah,
that's just how it goes. Yeah, I know. I love quarterback rush props. It's why it's like how I can make a somewhat decent profitability off of those.
Me too. We didn't get it with Mahomes against the Ravens, where I thought we were going to for all the similar reasons, zone coverage and all that stuff, how he takes off against it. But we missed on that one, but I do think this one we get 26.5.
I think both quarterbacks are going to have some scrambles. And another thing too, we talked about all the Spags, blitzing, and all that. Is Wilkes for the 49ers will bring blitzes. He will run stuff like man coverage, which is natural that you can scramble against. But why I wanted to bring up the zone stat was that it's zone too. Like Mahomes is going to look to scramble against both, so that's why I could just maybe see him just using his legs.
All right. Any other ones you want to give out here?
I want to get all of them because I haven't really even sifted through these too much. But how about?
It's fair. It's Tuesday.
Yeah, I know, and I'm just like, this is like this isn't a short list. It's a medium list. But I do like Rashee Rice over 33 receiving yards in the first half.
Okay.
Off the opening script stuff, just everything we talked about, peppering.
Great point.
It's -115. So I like that. Also, anytime touchdown for Rashee Rice, +125. They like using him in the red zone. How the defensive 49ers play in the red zone. It's either going to be man or where there is in zone, there's going to be some spots for him to attack. So that, and against defenses like this, they used him. Sometimes the route wasn't great, but they were targeting the play for him, designing the play for him. So that's one maybe I want to see get in there.
I love the Rashee Rice over on first half yards, because I've been like, all right, I feel like he's going to be so critical in this game, but like we talked about the 6.5 reception, it's high. Yeah. It's not as good odds as it was last week. That's a good way to sort of split the baby. Yeah. I like that. All right, last one I'll give out here. I am tempted to say Juwan Jennings over 1.5 catches at +100.
How about anytime touchdown +600?
Oh, yeah, but I don't know if I'm just drunk on Juwan Jennings.
I know, Jay. I know. This was me. The last time these two teams played, this is when I fell in love with Kendrick Bourne. Is because I was prepping for props, and I was like, man, they designed a lot of red zone plays.
Kendrick Bourne, pretty good player.
Yeah, he is. He's a perfect super role player, and I love Bourne. I know. I'm sad.
Yeah, a little tough when he's the #1 receiver on the damn Patriots, but he's a pretty solid
Chiefs
player.
Chiefs will love him. You've been phenomenal with him.
Free agent this year. He's coming off injury, but still free agent.
Still useful.
Last one, just again, it's -135, but juice check over 2.5 yards.
I swear to God, I had that one. And I wrote juice check. Yep, there he is. Over 2.5 receiving.
Can confirm.
Yeah. Right.
You literally wrote juice check.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm not going to try and spell it. I'm
a
professional writer.
I wrote JUSZ.
And I don't know which one I like better.
I was on my laptop, so I could have just copy pasted. But yeah, when I prepped all these, obviously days in advance. When I didn't do this 20 minutes before coming
this
over.
This is a great Uber ride.
A couple of pros here. All right, Nate. I know it's Tuesday, but any last predictions? I don't know if you're ready to give a pick. We don't have to.
I'm ready to give a pick. Okay. Yeah, I am going with Chiefs winning this game outright. Prediction of the score is 27-24.
27-24.
Well, that'll be a fun game. That would be the over as well, but if you want to get into that. But 27-24.
Yeah, I'll go over, and I'm not ready to pick against the spread, but I'll go Niners just to be different.
Yeah, that's fine. I always do that to Robert. Like because he always lets me go first.
Yeah,
and then so I always have. He's just always like, we can't always be the same.
I know, like, I think maybe it's because it's going to be so, like, I want Kyle Shanahan to win this game for all the stuff that we talked about where it's just.
As a neutral fan, it's win-win for me.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I don't care. I've been saying
care.
that since we had the Final Four teams. Like, any of those Final Four teams would have been great. I would have been totally cool with winning it. I know that obviously most people don't want to see Kansas City win again. They're definitely in their villain era. I totally understand that.
I get
but to me, not as a non-common man, you and I, as non-common men, we're here on, the mountain of high football knowledge. I don't know why I just went into a British accent there,
but TV behind us, that's why.
we're high football men knowledge. We don't get into this, we're sick of the Chiefs, all that. I'd like watching good football. They provide great football, so I'm cool if they win another Super Bowl. Couldn't care less. But I would love to see Shanahan win this one because I love to see a completed project. I think this would be I would love to see a completed project. This has obviously been something they've been building for from an offense perspective. They've certainly been building for it. And also, my God, for the man's mental health, like I kind of just want to see him win a Super Bowl.
And not have to hear 28-3 ever again. Oh my God, I'm just even seeing debates. I sometimes, like you said, not common man with all this. Sometimes in a good way, I get to ignore the noise.
Yeah. And
then once I get back, like I'll get back onto Twitter or get back into the day after games happen, I'm like, wait, this is what we're talking about? Yeah. There's been so much of it this playoffs. Like even the Lamar stuff, I was just like, like we were going into divisional round. We're talking about Robert and I, and then he was like, yeah, there's going to be chatter if he doesn't win a playoff game. I'm like, oh, that's right. That's a thing.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's the thing that happens.
Same thing for me with Shanahan, because Shanahan to me, I'm like, he's this generation's Andy Reid. And I mean that as a compliment, right? Because Andy Reid 10 years ago is viewed differently than he is now.
100%.
So but that's the thing is like this would change that. That changes that, same just how it did with Andy Reid. So I respect the hell out of him. I think he's just a phenomenal football coach. But again, like you said, completionist.
Yeah, just let's see a project completed. It would be, I think, a good like little cap to that, because I do think there's going to be a lot of comparisons if Shanahan doesn't win this game to Andy Reid. And like, it's not as if he's about to retire, Kyle Shanahan. Like he'll probably be, I mean, I always caution people against, and I love that Dan Campbell said it, like, hey, we might never be back here. And then Ben Johnson comes back to the offensive coordinator, like, hey, you know what, you might get back there. But I want to caution that constant. I want to caution kind of the they just will be back here. But I mean, he's going to be around for a long time. They might get another shot at it. But yeah, it took Andy Reid a long time to do it. There would be something poetic about if Kyle gets his first Super Bowl against Andy and sort of like, that sort of close that loop there and maybe just start to quiet down that narrative. But either way, I think we're in for a great game. Awesome. This was a great podcast. Again, I mean, we got special teams. Yes. We got Chiefs tight ends. We got,
Leo Chanel talk.
Leo Chanel. I'm glad you also said linebacker for the Chiefs, Leo Chanel. That was because
I'm trying to get better at that. My mother tells me I just say names, and she goes, "You got to sometimes say team. You got to say position."
Well, especially when you're talking about on a fantasy football show like the Chiefs linebackers.
This is an IDP. Yeah.
Don't. On that note, this has been a hell of a show, Nate. Appreciate you. Thanks so much, everybody. Make sure you're checking out all of Nate's work, especially on Yahoo Sports. The Overhang is a great column. If you're not reading that before the Super Bowl, I mean, you're doing the Super Bowl wrong. I'll say it. Nate Tice, appreciate you so much. Appreciate everybody listening. We're going to be back, like I said, on Thursday with Austin Eckler. Talked to him this week. We got some good topics coming up. That's going to be super fun. Also, just keep in to everything Yahoo Sports is doing. You can follow me at Matt Harmon _BYB. You can follow Yahoo Sports. You can follow Yahoo Fantasy, because we have great interviews and content coming all week long. We have, Steph Diggs is coming through, Puka Nacua, Jamar Chase. I mean, my God, there are other non-receivers too, but I'm jacked up for the receiver talk, so that's going to be electric. Appreciate you all. Be sure to tune in. Until then, we're out.